What's up, everybody? This is K Study QB, and we are in the progressive war room with my guy, Jason Krychiw. Jason Krychiw is a progressive candidate running for New Jersey State Senate. He's also running with Isa Heath and Ricky Castaneda, who's also running for New Jersey State Assembly. And I'm going to show you their website. But first, let me introduce my guy, Jason, and say hi to the people.
Hey, Case, thanks for having me on. Hey, everybody. Excited to talk about the race and progressivism in the district here.
Awesome. So, in the progressive war room, we're going to be talking strategy. I encouraged Jason. I said, hey, anything that has to do with the nitty gritty of your campaign, other interviews, they talk about the surface level of how's it going and not knocking those guys. But I told him that we want to really focus on the strategy. I want to know like the day-to-day activities, just so that other people who are running can get an idea of what it takes to run. Okay, so the first question I'm going to ask you, just to get it out the way, why are you running, Jason?
Well, I've been involved in organizing and progressive politics for a while now. I had run for local office before in 2019. Me and a slate of about 50 other people ran for the Democrat County Committee off the line as progressives, and a bunch of us won, fighting for change, pushing things like that. So I've always been involved in those sorts of things. And I just think over this past year with the pandemic, that has highlighted a lot of the issues that we've already been fighting, things about access to healthcare and, the state of our healthcare system, jobs, unemployment, affordable housing. These are all things that we've been fighting for a long time. But I think there's really a magnifying glass on these issues now that we've really seen how bad it can get through this pandemic. And I'm running because, we're going to come out of this one way or another. And I want to make sure that we come out of it with progressive policies in place to help all of us thrive, not just go back to the way things were, where you have people still struggling with all of those issues.
Awesome. So I'm also want to give a shout out to Progressive Democrats. This is their website, Progressive Democrats of New Jersey, which Jason is a part of. And this is our local New Jersey State Progressive organization that's fairly new and is growing. And they're all part of the Progressive Democrats of New Jersey slate. All right, so let's get into some questions. The first question I want to ask you, what New Jersey progressive policies are you passionate about?
Yeah, so I guess, you mentioned Progressive Democrats of New Jersey, something that we've been really fighting for as an organization, and then something that me and my two running mates, Isa and Ricky, are all very much proponents of, is abolishing the line in New Jersey. For those who might not know about it, and, I think you've talked about it on your show before, it's the idea that in New Jersey, the county party chairs kind of get to pick who runs on the ballot line, usually, in one of the premier columns. And it has been shown through studies and research, it gives the incumbents, or at least the people who are kind of indebted to these party bosses, the advantage when it comes to votes, when people just kind of, maybe who aren't as in tune, vote down the line. And that's what kind of perpetuates this party boss culture. So, one of the things that our entire slate wants to do, our entire organization has been working on for the last year, is abolishing the line. Also, some other things like I just mentioned before, this pandemic has really highlighted a lot of issues and a lot of problems we've been fighting for years. One of those first and foremost has to be economics, jobs and fair wages and benefits for workers. A lot of people are hurting right now with those kinds of things. And, I was talking to a group a couple months ago, before even formally launched, actually, who were talking about, due to some antitrust issues, they couldn't even unionize. So you have some workers who are, being taken advantage of, who can unionize, they're kind of being strung along by the system. Then you have other ones who can't even do that. And so this is the kind of like progressive stuff we want to be pushing, pro-union, get people better representation, who are laborers and who are workers that way. The latest stimulus package that Congress just passed on a federal level, it's got rid of the compulsory paid medical leave on the state level, and there's a lot of things in there that this on the state level we can fill the gaps in. Making sure that
Yeah.
workers have paid sick leave, especially during medical emergencies and what we're dealing with now. And I could go into the nitty gritty of kind of all the labor and economic stuff, but that's something that I'm personally really passionate about. People at the end of the day, they're trying to pay their mortgage or rent, they're trying to feed themselves and their families, and they're trying to hold down a job. And all three of those things have been tough for a lot of people in New Jersey to begin with.
Yeah.
It's only become harder because of the pandemic and things we've been dealing with. And so I'm excited, for my slate to get in there, to win, to be in Trenton fighting for these things. And that's the name progressive. We have to make progress. We have to be proactive about these things, because in a couple months, even if we get the vaccine out and we start coming out of this pandemic, we could be in store for a major jobs crisis. We could be in store for a major housing crisis when those eviction moratoriums end. And that's the kind of stuff we have to be legislating about now, so we aren't dealing with those problems in the future.
Awesome. So, all right. So let's talk about campaign now. What is your current campaign infrastructure? And then I'm going to ask you, where would you like to see it grow?
Right now, again, with the pandemic and everything, as most people know from work or school or whatever it might be, a lot of it's virtual. So, there's not really a lot of physical campaign infrastructure. A lot of it is weekly meetings over Zoom with the campaign team. We have a campaign group of about, kind of maybe like a dozen or so core members. Between like the campaign manager, coordinated campaign person, communications, field people, kind of all working together to kind of build this campaign up. So, a lot of the stuff is done virtually. A lot of it is just kind of being in constant communication over Slack or messaging or whatever it might be to kind of coordinate and get a plan every week for, hey, what do we want the campaign to do this week? And so, that's kind of where we're at now. I mean, that's a little bit atypical from the normal campaign, like in a non-COVID world where you might have campaign offices and people would probably be working, in more closer contact or, like physically together more often. You might be at like call centers doing cold calling instead of just kind of everyone being, on their phones on a Zoom call or something like that. So, it's a little interesting. I'd like to see, us just kind of be able to continue to work those things out. I mean, hopefully as we get closer through the campaign cycle, we are more safely able to kind of do some of these things to have, in-person offices, in-person, kind of infrastructure built up. But so, right now it's mostly all virtual and electronic and everything like that. So it's been interesting adapting to it, but it's been good.
Cool. So I got a couple questions out of what you said. So first of all, so do you have those Zoom meetings, once a day, once a week?
So the full kind of campaign team meetings are about once a week.
Okay.
Maybe, once every like 10 days or so. That's like with the entire group. But kind of in between those things, we'll have one-off meetings. Like I'm constantly in communication with our comms department and our social media group, because like we're, we constantly like want to put content out. We constantly want to get videos up. We constantly want to, make policy posts and things like that. So, like we'll talk a lot in between those meetings. Our like political person, our policy people, we're constantly talking with them saying, how can we develop these policies that we already have an idea of, but like, let's really dive in and figure out, how we can write legislation on this eventually and things like that. So, so I would say, most day it's kind of like informal communications with different departments or like department leaders. And then we kind of have those large team meetings, 3-4 times a month.
And then like, I guess the Slack is like for real time kind of things. If you see any emergencies come up, you can talk through Slack, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
That, that's more for, like you said, maybe not so much emergencies, but like, oh, this article just dropped of
Oh,
like,
exactly. That's what I
like
mean by
look what
emergency.
the
Like,
incumbent's saying right now. Yeah, exactly.
exactly.
So
Like
yeah,
those.
it's more like real time thing we're working on.
I think in campaign they call it rapid response, right? Yeah. I think that's what it's called, like
Yeah.
professionally. Yeah.
Yeah.
When is the election? I should have asked that in the beginning or mentioned that.
Yeah, the election is June 8th, 2021. So it's this
June
upcoming
8th. Okay.
primary election in New Jersey.
Yeah. We definitely. I want to have another interview with you, like after the election. Hopefully, it will be a celebratory uh interview,
Yeah.
right? But I want to
Yeah.
ask more questions because I'm curious. Like as that day approaches, how many do you do more Zooms? Like right now, you said every 10 days you do a one Zoom. Like maybe as it came, like
Mhm.
2, 3, 4 weeks before that, do you do like 3 times every 10 days? That's a question I want to ask. And then
Mhm.
shoot, I had another question that I slipped my mind when that you were talking about. But all right, I'll go on to what I have here, and if it comes up to me, I'll go back to it. So, where would you like to see it grow? So, like as of right now, you said you have 12 people, right? So, like,
Mhm.
what is your ideal? Like, you would love to get it to, what your executive team, I guess, is this 12 people, and then how many volunteers would you like to have, and what would you like to see them do? And also, I just remembered, I'll just make this comment. I guess it's cheaper in a sense, right? Because if you had a storefront, place that a brick and mortar campaign office, you have to
Mhm.
pay rent. So with COVID
Yeah.
kind of forcing us into Zoom sessions, right? Would you say that
Yeah.
that's an
Yeah,
expense off the
absolutely.
table? Go ahead.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think in a way, things like that actually favor campaigns like this that are more grassroots. We don't have
Mm-hmm.
like corporate PAC money or special interest stuff flowing in that just kind of
Mm-hmm.
discard on office spaces or whatever else. I mean, granted, I'd like to see us get to that point eventually if it's safe and we're able to. But at the same time, I think this campaign specifically benefits because, like we were talking about, Progressive Democrats of New Jersey, relatively young. It's as a statewide organization, we're getting to be about our first full year. But we basically existed as long as this
Mm-hmm.
the health emergency has. So a
Oh wow.
lot of the organizing we had to do for that, we did
Mm-hmm.
this same way. So I think it actually gives us a little bit of an advantage because we've been organizing virtually and we've been doing these things, out of person and online for a while now. So definitely
Oh
has its
awesome.
unique challenges, but I think in a way it is a little bit it is a little bit helpful to kind of do that as far as like cost savings and efficiency and things like that.
Awesome.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, as far as kind of where I'd like to see our campaign team go and the kind of infrastructure of the campaign.
Yeah.
Like I said, like we kind of have this core team of kind of like department heads on the campaign, which is about a dozen people now. I definitely like to see more people kind of come in to help in those various departments. A lot of the people who are doing, policy and campaigns and comms and oppo even, they're putting in tons of work for this. So they could definitely use help kind of staffing up themselves to have help
Mm-hmm.
on that.
Mm-hmm.
And then as far as general volunteers, I mean, I'd like to see us get a couple hundred dedicated volunteers. I mean, just speaking from races I've done in the past, like I mentioned in 2019, we ran for like the Democrat County Committee in Union County. We had a whole slate of people, and between the people running and volunteers for
Mm-hmm.
that campaign, that was about 75 to 100 people on its own. And
Nice.
that was just like a local thing going on, where I live. So now that we're
Nice.
kind of on a state level, we have the infrastructure of like the progressive Dems behind us. I'd
Mm-hmm.
like to see us get, a
Mm-hmm.
couple of hundred people, like kind of grow off
Mm-hmm.
of that and really have a strong field team, a strong volunteer team to turn out. And so far, it's trending that way. I mean, so many people since we've launched, have supported, whether it's been like donating or sharing our stuff online. But
Mm-hmm.
most of all, people are saying, put me on the volunteer list, like keep me in the loop, let me know when it's time to make calls or drop a lid or whatever else. I mean, I would
Okay.
say 7 out of every 10 people, without even being asked, are saying, let me know how I can help. So it's been
Yeah.
really,
Awesome.
really awesome to see the excitement behind everything on the volunteer front.
Yeah, let's talk about dropping literature. Do you have lit already? I know. First of all, how long have you been in the race for? How many weeks now?
So I officially announced December 14th. So
Okay,
me personally, it's been just over exactly a month.
month. Okay.
And then Isa and Ricky, who are running for assembly, they
Hmm.
just announced earlier this week. I mean, we've all
Okay.
kind of been working together since I
Hmm.
launched, but they have just formally announced
So
earlier this week.
you have literature together because you guys running as a slate, right? Or do you only have some for yourself right now? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so I mean, right now, most of the stuff we have is just kind of online. You know, we have
Okay.
our website,
Okay.
ld20progressivedems.com,
Okay.
which has,
Hmm.
information on all of us as candidates, on our stances on the issues, kind of like our top 8 or 10 things that we're fighting for as a slate. So yeah, right now, no real literature, just because I think kind of coming out of holiday and New Year's, and being in the winter, and obviously with COVID too, it's kind of difficult to get all those things together right now. So yeah, I mean, a lot of what we're doing now is through like the
Yeah.
website, through social media, through
Hmm.
virtual sharing and things like that. But yeah, like, the
Hmm.
three of us are running as a slate together. So when we
Do you,
do eventually get up and running, it'll be the group of us.
do you have a date that you want to have your literature ready and you're going to start canvassing? Like, I know I've seen other campaigns, they do canvas with their mask on, and you got to be careful, you got to
Mm-hmm.
make sure everyone has the proper equipment to do that. But is that do you have like a date that you have in mind that you want to get on the streets?
Nothing set in stone yet.
Okay.
I would say probably in the next month ish
Hmm.
or so
Hmm.
would be ideal. Try to get out there early. Kind of right as we're kind of hitting around springtime, so we have a solid 3-4 months of
Yeah.
being out there and pounding the pavement. And like you said, doing it in a safe way. I mean, I know last primary, in Union County where I am, I saw a lot of uh, incumbents, or like a lot of kind of like connected machine politicians going out, no mask, door to door,
Oh
handing out
wow.
stuff, being really unsafe about it because,
Yeah. Wow.
to them, the office is more important, like the power is more important than the public good, or the safety
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, eventually, if and when we do things like that, we're definitely going to make sure we're doing it safe and we're taking those things seriously.
So let's get to the dirty side of campaigning. How do you raise
Yeah.
your money?
Hmm. Well, so yeah, like, like I was saying before, grassroots campaigns, typically progressive ones, even if we had people lining up who were like corporate connected or special interest or whatever and giving us money, we wouldn't be taking it in the first place, offering us that
Okay,
kind of stuff,
nice,
because,
nice.
as progressives, like that's something we want to do. Um, so that leaves like very much grassroots campaigning. And I would say, even from my past experience in this race, the money thing is, I don't want to say the hardest part, but it's definitely the part that you have to be the most dedicated to, the most consistent about. So like I said, like I launched just about a month ago, and pretty much every single day since then, I've been doing call time, which, for people who might not know, call time is basically,
Yeah,
you get on the phone, you go down your Rolodex of contacts, and I'm
yeah,
talking like anyone's number you have on your phone, you're giving them a call, whether it's like a
yeah,
high school buddy, your
yeah,
professor from college that you were close to, like people you organize with. You're
yeah.
giving them a call, letting them know you're running for office, and then you're asking them for money to help support the campaign. And that's basically, what I've been doing since launch day. And it is a grind, but it's something you have to kind of keep up and do. I mean, it is unfortunate that a lot of campaigns and a lot of races are dictated by the money you can raise, and not so much the policy or how good of a candidate you might be. A lot of these machine incumbents can kind of snap their fingers, and they'll get all the usual corporate donors and dark money flooded in, and they can just send out mailers, and they can just sign it off on their checks and
Yeah.
expenditure reports,
Hmm.
and that's that. They don't have to put in the work like this. But for like campaigns like ours, and I would think really any progressive campaign coming up in the state. I mean, I know a lot of congressional races that did this exact same thing
Yeah.
last year in New Jersey, like as far as like off the line
Mm.
progressive challengers. But yeah, I mean, it's something you have to do and put in the work, and I mean, it's paid off. I mean, we've raised a decent amount of money in the first month,
Okay.
especially
Okay.
now that my two running mates, Isa and Ricky, are in. You know, it kind of
Okay.
gives like an additional boost this past week, and so you know
Okay.
we've been doing really well. You know, we're
Mm.
definitely hitting our kind of like monthly or like weekly goals that we're looking at, and
Mm.
you know, you just, you know, for any kind of, I guess, prospective candidate in the future, that is before you know, kind of get to what people might picture as campaigning, which is like talking door to door, or talking about
Mm.
policies, or talking about issues.
Mm.
You know, that'll all come, but the early
Yeah.
days of it, and you know, throughout most of it, it's about making sure your campaign is funded and you can get that message out.
That's interesting. So you guys are all putting your money in one pot?
Yeah, so when I
Mm.
started off by myself, I had my own you know, candidate committee for state
Mm.
senate.
Mm.
Now that Ricky and Isa have both launched, we filed a joint candidate committee
Mm.
recently, which, for you know, people who might not know about that, whenever you run for office in New Jersey, you have to file with the what's called ELEC, which is the
Mm.
Election Law Enforcement Commission.
Okay. Okay.
um and so, like, you know, that's who kind of monitors like the financial compliance and the campaign things that you're doing. And you can
Mm.
file individual committees if you're running as a single person for a single office, or
Mm.
you can file joint candidate committees if you're running kind of with a slate of people, as long as they're the same office.
Okay.
And in New Jersey, for kind of purposes of the way things are filed, state level positions, so state senate, what I'm running for, and state
Mm.
assembly,
Mm.
which Ricky and Isa are running for, are all, you know, kind of viewed as the same thing. So we're all in
Okay.
one kind of candidate committee together, and so we are all raising money as one, you know, one single progressive
Interesting.
unit.
Yes, this is the type of gems I'm talking about. I'm learning some stuff right here. I'm learning some stuff. So I would have thought that logically, like, oh, you're in the state senate, you're in the assembly, it has to be separate. But that's good to know. That is really good, because like just as long as you're progressive and you have your progressive allies, you guys could come together. Is there a limit to how many people can be in the pot, or in the, you know, together?
um I I'm not sure if there's a limit on the people. I know
Mm.
they limit it by office. So like I
Hmm.
said, like I can join with Ricky and Isa because we're all running for state level things.
Okay.
We wouldn't necessarily be able to add someone to that who's running for a county office or a local office. But that
Ah,
doesn't mean
okay.
that it doesn't mean that the people who are all running for county offices can't be one joint committee themselves. So
Mm.
you still kind of have to have a couple, like depending on the level of office you're running for.
Gotcha.
But yeah, no, it's definitely a good idea to do that, because actually another kind of tidbit for that, which is
Okay.
like, I guess, helpful for any progressives who want to run for office.
Yes, give it to me.
You
Give
know,
it to me,
typically,
Jay.
yeah. Typically, you know, again, like, you know, with progressives, with grassroots people, you're not going to be getting these people who are able to drop 10 grand on a donation or something like that.
Yeah.
But you know, sometimes you do. Sometimes like progressives might know people from work or whatever else
Mm.
who are supportive, who are progressive, and they
Mm.
want to support the campaign and you know, give more to somebody. If you're in a single candidate committee, the limit for donating is $2,600. So no individual can give you more money than that. But if you are in a joint candidate committee, for every extra person there is, it multiplies that donation cap. So if
Okay.
there's two of you in one joint committee, it's now $5,200 limit.
Oh,
If
okay.
there's three of
Gotcha.
you, it's now $7,800, whatever that math turns out to be.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So like for things like that, it's good too. Like, you know, if you
Yeah.
do have people who want to give a lot to donate and support progressive causes, that's another reason, you know, you might want to consider, you know, when you run for office,
Mm.
you know, for anyone, you know, who might be interested in that, you know, it is a good way to help raise money, like by you said, kind of like pooling resources, like kind of
Yeah.
working together and kind of doing things that way.
So that's interesting, because like if you were to pay your campaign manager, like would the campaign manager be split between the three also? Would you be sharing resources that way, or I'm just curious.
Uh, it would depend. I mean, there definitely are like rules you have to follow on it. You
Hmm.
can't like game the system that way. I'm not trying to
Hmm.
be on here advocating to like try to like do that at all.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Don't get in
like
trouble.
for yeah, for joint committees, you can do that as long as the money spent out of those things benefits all the people in it equally. So like any literature that you pay for out of that joint group, for example, it has to have all the candidates on it, because you need to promote each other equally if you're kind of pulling your money together like that. So
Mhm.
I imagine like paying for staff or everything would work the same way. Like you all have to be benefiting from it or have
Mhm.
equal representation to
Mhm.
use money from there. Like for example, like I can't take money from the joint account and just put
Okay.
out like a Jason for state senate mailer. It would
Yeah.
only be
See.
kind of like a whole slate.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So, all right. Before we move on, I got a strategy idea that I'd like to throw at you. And
Mhm.
of course, like I said, if we, after the election, if you do this, I'll be curious if you do this. So I always thought when you do canvas and you go out there giving out flyers, leaflets, and hitting the streets, if there was a way for you to collect money, basically, I call it the dollar ask, right? And when
Mhm.
you talk to somebody, you give them your spiel and say, hey, I'm Jason, or your volunteers, hey, I got this person, Jason, and everyone else on the slate, and we're trying to get this done. And you give the whole spiel. You're not just asking for their vote, but ask for $1. Like say, hey, can you donate some money or whatever it is. So like if they want to donate more, like let's say, okay, yeah, I can give you $10. You don't want to ask for the minimum, but let's say, yeah, I can't donate $10. You can say, hey, can I at least ask for $1? Because I think that if you can get at least $1, which is pretty much nothing, that's why I'm going down that low. If you could get $1,
Mhm.
people feel a little bit more vested now, right, in your campaign.
Yeah.
Meaning that somebody that might say, "Oh yeah, I'll vote for you," and then they just keep it moving. They might forget you 20 minutes later. But somebody that's gave you $1, you give them
Mhm.
a leaflet, they're gonna take it home and probably put it on their refrigerator. Like I feel like something like that is a human psychology where you would increase the percentage of that person voting. What do you think about that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's like you said, I think anything a candidate can do to get buy-in that goes just beyond the usual kind of campaign
Hmm.
spiel,
Hmm.
it's like you said, like it keeps you in the back of their head. Because, like I said, like our election is in June. If we're out there canvassing in April, let's say, and we're not going to doors. You talk to someone who's like really invested in the campaign, like they're progressive, they're young, they think it's time to
Hmm.
get some changes in.
Hmm.
He's like, that's great, remember to come out and vote when we leave. Life comes up, maybe they got stuff going on with their work or their family or whatever.
Exactly.
You get to the
Exactly.
June 8th primary now, and now you're on June 9th, and that person's like, oh damn, I
Oh,
forgot
I
to vote.
forgot. Yeah, exactly.
And
Yep.
and that's the kind of thing where it's like, if you kind of have that conversation and leave, they can be as supportive as anything. But it's like you said, like the end goal is to get them to buy into the campaign, so they remember you. They remember to go vote for you. They tell other people about you. And
Hmm.
yeah, like I think like trying to do like donation things like that, like just making sure it's within the compliance is a great way to do that. Something that I actually did one of the first years that I ever kind of ran for office for local council. This is like maybe 2016, 2017. When I would go around and canvas, I didn't have I had like flyers and like lit, but I went on like Vistaprint or something and I printed
Hmm.
up like 1,000 little fridge magnets with
Okay.
my picture and
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
name and contact or whatever.
Hmm.
And it's like you said, like people put it on their fridge, like they go on, like people will use a magnet, they'll just go toss it
Yeah.
on their fridge. So it's at
Exactly.
least like you're in their face every day since then. And
Yeah.
I have people to this day still who like remember me only because I gave them a magnet one time, went to go visit their house.
There you go. There you
And like
go.
that's the kind of stuff like you said, like
Yeah.
that little bit of extra that you do really gets people to buy in and remember you in the campaign.
Yeah. Now, so my last question before we move on from the money topic. So
Mhm.
typically, now we live in a digital age where a lot of times, you don't have cash. So, like, what do you do in that predicament where you're on the streets? And first of all, when somebody does have cash, how does that work? because I'm curious because you have to record their name and their occupation and all that stuff, and then for the digital. Let me ask that question first. Yeah, for cash, how does that work?
So for cash, so the way election finance reporting in New Jersey works is you have to report any donations over a certain amount. Over $300 you have to report.
Okay.
Under $300 you don't have to report them as individuals unless it's in cash. So if anyone gives you any amount of money, even if it's like $1 in cash, you have to get all their information to report that for compliance.
Wow.
So maybe like getting the actual cash route would be a little bit tedious. I mean, in some cases it could be worth it. Like if you're gonna go one month, knock on 10,000 doors, and half the people give you $1, and you can raise $5,000 for your campaign, like great. It's worth writing the name down and taking a couple extra minutes. But there definitely is like the compliance stuff you have to follow for like just straight cash donations, regardless of the amount. And then like typically then, like you said, most people will, it's more the electronic age. People would prefer just kind of like go on to Act Blue and enter their credit card info or something like that, or maybe even like send you a check in some cases. So it's something that I would probably suggest too is like if people want to do that, on your flyers, like, or on your literature you're dropping off, have a way to donate. Or like, if you're talking to them, ask for like at the very least maybe their email or something, and ask if like you can follow up with more information that way. Because like some people would rather just like in their own time give, like go on their computer, donate that way, go on their phone and donate that way and be done with it. So even if you can get a contact item from someone, whether it's like their phone number or their email, and you can just hey, here's my website link, I'm just following up, we talked today. You stay in their minds, they can see your whole campaign site now, they can donate if they want to. And, in that way, like you give another option for people to support the campaign, which is the end goal when you're trying to do that kind of stuff.
Awesome. That's good information right there. I lied. One more thing. I know in New York, right, they have a multiplier. I saw when Nomiki Kans ran for public advocate and I think the mayor race that's coming up in New York City. They have a policy where like up to a certain amount of money, they can, I think, times it by like either 7 or 8. I forgot. Does New Jersey have anything like that? And that helps like grassroots candidates specifically. So does New Jersey have anything like that? Go ahead.
I don't know about exactly like that. The only things I know like that are like I mentioned before, like if you do joint committees, you can multiply the max donation by the amount of people in that committee. So like the max is like 2,600 to one person. It's double that with 2. It's triple that with 3. I think 3 is the cap for that. But like that's like one multiplier that's in there. I know that if you're running in a primary, you set up your campaign account for the primary election. When you kind of refile to run then for the general, I know that it resets all those limits. So if someone did like a max donation to you for a primary and you win, those people can donate to you more money for the general now.
Interesting.
So there's not so much of a multiplier in that way, but it is like a little bit of a reset button. Like you can kind of go back to the same people and say, hey, if you want to donate some more, the cap is off, or it's reset, and you can kind of give more money that way.
So just to be clear though, you understand, because I understand you can multiply the amount of money that people could donate to you, but just to be clear, New York City, like let's say I gave $1, when it goes to that person, it multiplies into $7 because the city puts in that money, like the rest of the money.
Okay.
Yeah. Just to be clear, they have that type of policy, which is very progressive. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. That's what I was gonna say. New Jersey doesn't have anything like that because the.
Is that something you would be interested in passing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think especially like you said, like that that idea is like really progressive in general because, like we were saying before, I mean, it's unfortunate that in politics a lot of the time it's not about if you have better policies, if you're a better candidate, even if the other people are like corrupt and whatever else, and it's not even like a well-kept secret. If you don't have the funding to get that message out, but the incumbents in the machine always do, they can wash you out that way. So I would definitely support something that allows for more kind of like publicly funding of elections,
Yeah.
or like doing the opposite of
Yeah.
kind of like,
Hmm.
not, it's almost like a statewide Citizens United type decision, or
Exactly.
like something like that, with
Yeah.
like campaign donations to keep,
Mm.
I guess, both the rampant campaign donating and spending by connected people in check, but also you're giving people who don't have those connections like a fair shot to get their message out. So yeah, I think
Exactly.
that would be great. New Jersey doesn't have anything like that to my
Hmm.
knowledge,
Hmm.
which is not surprising. I mean, our state government here is very establishment centrist,
Yeah.
old timey in that way, so it's not
Yeah.
surprising.
Okay, definitely. I would love to see that on the issues. Like, I know I'm just throwing that out there, and it would need to be
Mhm,
researched and find out what's the best way to put that policy together. But I would love to see
mhm.
that on your guys' issues page. And we're gonna touch on the issues probably in a second before we end the interview. But yeah, that would be awesome. So I'm going to get away from
Mhm.
how do you raise money, but I want to ask you, how much money do you think your race it would take to win? Like would it take $100,000, 200,000? I'm just curious.
So I guess if I would say if we could hit $200,000, we would win this election. Hands down.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
highly confident of that.
Wow.
Because typically in this district, in state level races for things like this, the incumbents and others in previous cycles have spent about that amount of money when they've
Okay.
run.
Hmm.
And I always think, I mean, I think I know this is true of our campaign, but I think it's true of progressive campaigns in general, and of grassroots campaigns, is that, we spend money more efficiently. We use our
Hmm.
resource better. We use our volunteers better.
Okay.
Because a lot of the times these campaigns like these are, they're scrappy. You
Yeah.
can't, like you mentioned before with the, like renting an office, like that would be great, but that's like, $1,000 a month we could be spending on something else, like to
Yeah.
help us win. And so, like I said, that's the kind of amount that incumbents who are connected to the machine have raised and spent in the past.
Hmm.
And so to me, if you ever are able to hit the amount of money that the incumbents typically spend, the
Hmm.
progressives have a really good shot of winning. Because I think in a lot of races where progressives have won, or at least come close, typically the money difference is huge. And because it's because progressives rely on volunteerism. They rely on that excitement and that grassroots energy and that field operation. So, like I mentioned, we when we won those county committee seats offline in 2019, we won 15 of them. We took 15 seats off the line. Um, and that's, I spent about, I was running for town council that year to try to kind of like buoy that ticket locally. And we spent about $3,000 compared to the incumbents who,
Hmm.
both for town council and the Democrat committee, spent about 75 to
Wow.
80 something thousand dollars. So, I
Mm.
mean, we got outspent like 25 to 1,
Mm.
and we won 15 seats.
Wow.
And there was a bunch more that were separated by single digit votes.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I think it could have been more. I actually think we left some seats on the table there.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
like that, that to the point I'm trying to make, I guess, is that, if we were to have raised the same amount as them,
Mm.
there's no doubt in my mind it would have swept all those seats, because with
Mm.
so much less money, using kind of just, volunteers doing door to door,
Mm.
putting in
Mm.
that work, we were
Yeah.
able to like make those wins. So,
What's
same thing to me at the state level.
What's the biggest expense you think you have? Because I mean, at that level, I don't think you're doing TV ads, right? So in my imagination, I would think that TV ads, if you're at the national or the state level, if you're running for the House or the Senate, that's where you need a lot of
Yeah.
money would go to the TV advertisement. But at this level, state Senate, how much money? Go ahead.
Uh, I would say that probably the biggest expense, and it's usually this way for most races, except for maybe minus TV, like you said, depending on, where you're trying to advertise, is
Hmm.
mailers. And
Mm.
it's not even like
Okay.
the physical mailers; it's the postage. I mean, each
Mm.
each mail you're sending out is whatever the cost of a stamp is now, like over 50 cents. So
Yeah.
two mailers is $1. And when you're
Okay.
talking like a state level district, it's usually, how many are in this? I guess there's probably around just under 300,000 people in this
Mm,
state district. So that's probably between 200,000 and change like registered voters, I would imagine.
hmm.
Um, so if you wanted to send a piece of mail to all those people, that's
Yeah.
$100,000 just to send out one
Wow.
mailer, just
And,
based on like the postage of it.
and that's not including the cost of the
So
actual leaflet, right?
yeah, it's not even including the actual like
Wow.
literature. Yeah. Like yeah,
Hmm.
and relative to the postage, the literature is like the actual like physical thing is
Hmm.
probably the
Hmm.
cheapest part of that whole equation. But yeah, like you're talking probably like 75, 80 cents per thing you're sending out. Like, let's even just like
Yeah.
round it up to $1.
Yeah.
It costs $1 per person to send out a piece of mail. So if you want to even reach 10,000 people, which is like a small fraction of the voters, that's
Yeah.
$10,000 that you're spending just to send out that one piece of mail.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I would say that usually in this campaign, and I would say in every campaign, that's usually the biggest single expense.
Single expense. Okay. Okay. So I'm curious. That could be another progressive policy, like to try to see if we can. Because I always imagine and I feel like I've seen postage from like the government, like, and it will say in the upper right corner, like, as long as the government is free, like the U.S. Post Office would just send it. But I could imagine at the same time though, they probably get a good amount of revenue from every election cycle. So they probably would definitely be
Yeah,
the postal lobbyists will push against that. But yeah,
yeah,
okay.
probably.
Okay, okay. So next question is, how many people are running in your race? So of course you have the incumbent, and then go ahead.
hmm Yeah, so I guess right now officially it is me and the incumbent state senator. There was an article earlier this week that sources were saying that another uh, person was going to throw their hat in the ring for Senate. To my knowledge, they haven't made an official announcement about it yet, but
Okay.
assuming that is the case, there'll be three of us running, and actually both of the other two would kind of be. Um, one is the incumbent from the state Senate seat, and the other
Mm-hmm.
is one of the incumbents who have previously been in the assembly in this district. So there's three people running for Senate supposedly, but that also means that there is one empty assembly seat currently, if that's the case. Which means like there's three people running, two of them are a progressive line for two seats.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming the machine, obviously, they're going to throw somebody in the line eventually if that becomes the case. But
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, right now there's only the one other assembly person, and then our two progressive candidates, Ricky and Isa,
yeah, yeah.
and then myself and the two Senate candidates for state Senate.
Interesting. Okay, so I don't think we're going to have this problem, but I'm thinking about like in a House race where there's like four progressives. Do you think another progressive can join this race, or you think you like progressive Democrats of New Jersey have a good lock on the progressive community to say, all right, this we're going to almost pull a DNC and nobody else is running it, no other progressive running in this race.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I mean, I would hope I would hope we don't have that reputation where
I know,
like
right?
people can't run for office. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think I would say it's unlikely just
Mm-hmm.
because of the way progressive Democrats of New Jersey kind of formed and what we're all
Mm-hmm.
about. Like
Yeah.
we are an electoral I guess I would say like we're an electorally focused organization. It's like that doesn't even mean like necessarily election based. Like we are technically like we're classified around like as a social welfare organization because we don't just like we don't really spend money on like people running for office per se,
Yeah.
but our members will engage in like educating people on how to run for office,
Nice. Nice.
training people up on what those things are like, offering maybe support or endorsements or resources,
Mm-hmm.
in addition to just like general advocacy and organizing we do kind of year round.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's to say that I think it's unlikely that other progressives might kind of throw their hat into the ring, because a lot of the people who kind of are part of this team, a lot of the people who are interested in running or being part of races like this, are already part of PD&J in some way.
Okay.
And, you know, we're just kind of here to help each other, you know, like we're here to
gotcha.
kind of be the, you know, like the umbrella group, I guess, for progressives who want to do this kind of stuff. So,
awesome.
you know, I mean, if other people came along to run for office, you know, like we're not going to stop them, but you know, obviously we can only, as a group, really endorse and support, you know, one progressive or so per office, just so we're not, you know, cannibalizing the vote, I guess. But
no, of course.
you know,
I think
we definitely.
Yeah, that's probably one of the biggest advantages of being a small, tight-knit group, like that you have your ears to the ground with other progressives. And even if you say, okay, you guys, you run this time, and if if it doesn't work out, maybe the next time I'll run, and you could kind of get that organizing done beforehand, you know. So that's a good thing. Interesting. All right. So the next question. I'm curious to know any dirty tricks that might have already come down the pike already. Have you seen anything shady, or do you foresee anything shady?
I haven't seen anything. Well, actually, that's not true. But I'll get back to that in a second.
Okay.
They definitely will do shady, underhanded smear campaign stuff, 100%. And I say that just because I haven't seen anything like that really in this race yet. But like I've mentioned, you know, I've run in the past, and this is for local office. The Democratic, the local Democratic chair in my town, like when I was running in a primary against against kind of like their people, like as an offline progressive running against the more machine, you know, conservative Democrat types. They would send out attack ads about me, like mailers. Like I already mentioned how expensive mailers are. They would send out at least 2 or 3 attack ads about me. You know, then this is like a local council seat. It's not even like state or anything high level like that.
Wow.
You know, they would probably spend $20,000 to $30,000 an election sending out attack ads about me. You know, me on a mailer with Donald Trump, me on a mailer with Chris Christie, just like badly photoshopped, like, you know, like a middle school level Photoshop.
You gotta be kidding me.
Yeah. Like, you know, oh, don't do, you know, like there's a Republican in disguise on your ballot, and there's a this and a that, and you know, and that was again like for a local race, like people put that kind of stuff out, and so you know, I expect it again, obviously. I mean, they already kind of showed their hand at the local level. I expect the same thing here. And you know, it's funny to me too, because when I announced to run for state senate a month ago, you know, we announced, we had like our press hits, we had like a really great launch day. I think that night or the next day, there was someone else put out a press release endorsing my opponent like that night. I guess it was kind of like a soft response to me announcing. But in that thing that, you know, they were calling me like an AOC wannabe and a progressive this and a whatever. And it's funny because it's like they can't even get their attack ads straight. You know, they're calling me a Republican over here, they're calling me AOC over here. It's like, you know, at least make up your mind if you're going to attack me about something.
Exactly. And that actually might help you out, because the association with AOC, they might say, oh, okay, this person must be, you know, progressive as, you know, an AOC progressive. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I feel like you see that a lot on, like, especially like, you know, when more like centrist or like Republican leading people will send out those attack ads. They'll send them out as like attack ads, but it's like, oh yeah, like this person wants, you know, they support environmental rights and a Green New Deal, and they support fair wages, and it's like they say it like it's a bad thing, and I'm like, well, yeah, that's my platform. Thanks for getting it out there for me. We're trying to help people. I don't understand. I don't understand why this is a bad thing.
Exactly. So that might actually work out helping you. That's very interesting that you have people like just totally I mean, of course, this is politics, so you're going to get dirty tricks at every level, but I'm just flabbergasted that that's the reason why a lot of people don't even like to get into politics, because they know that they're going to have people going through their garbage or going through their, in this day and age, you know, social media and finding some random photo, and, you know, they're not even using legit photos. They're photoshopping Chris Christie, you know, this stuff. So, yeah, that's pretty crazy. So let me ask you, what would your oppo position research do to, like, you know, the challenger, or how would you combat that kind of things going on?
Yeah, so I mean, unlike what I think, establishment try to do to people like me and anybody watching who's wanted to run for office, Case was just saying, you should expect those kind of things. Like New Jersey politics and politics in general can get dirty, but I'm still here today, running for state senate now. We won off the line races
Yeah.
because the fact is that if you put in the work, people
Mm,
will know you as an organizer or a community
mm,
activist or whatever it might be, first and foremost. So, something that happened with me is like when they got that thing in the mail that was like, oh, he supports Trump, he supports this, whatever. It actually fired up people who knew me more than anything
oh
else. Because they were
wow,
like,
there
oh,
you
they're
go.
coming after another guy who I know, like,
Yeah.
puts in the work and does good. Like, now they were telling their neighbors, like, we got to get and vote these people out of office because, like, look what
uh,
they're doing. And
oh
so,
wow, okay.
I'd say like definitely it's like a cautionary tale, but
Mm,
it's something that in certain ways can be helpful too.
mm,
And I think they'll say whatever. I mean, obviously,
mm,
I have never met Christie or Trump. I don't ever
yeah.
want to. I don't support anything that they
Yeah.
do or say. Um, but and so like they'll just like take things and say whatever it might be. The stuff that we're doing as a campaign,
Yeah.
it's not about personal things. It's like looking at their record as
Exactly.
legislators. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you look up a lot of the people in New Jersey, like the list of legislation in New Jersey that is progressive is not long. And even
Mm-hmm.
the ones that do exist usually don't even make it out of committee. And that's the kind of things you can look up and see, well, like, how do these people vote on these bills? Um, like the person I'm running against, for example, they'll have the audacity to say that I'm right leaning or whatever it is, even though I'm
Mm-hmm.
part of Progressive Democrats.
Yeah.
When if you check their voting history, they're voting for $1 billion tax breaks for large corporations. They're
Yeah. Yeah.
voting against these are a lot of the same legislators who voted against marijuana legalization even before we had
Wow.
the ballot initiatives on it. This is like 2 years ago when they tried to pass it in the state house and they couldn't do it because
Mm,
too many Democrats didn't want to pass it. So, the kind of like
wow.
oppo for us is kind of like looking at what they do very publicly
Yeah.
and, just like factually shine a light on it. Like, we're
Mm-hmm.
not making things up. We're not trying to smear. We're just putting the facts out there that these
Mm-hmm.
people who call themselves Democrats and try to hide behind like the Democrat shield in a blue
Yeah.
state, oftentimes they legislate and they pass laws that are more Republican leaning. Like if you did
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
blind test on paper of like, oh, what party was this person from if they passed these bills, you would
Yeah.
guess Republican for a lot of the people who are
Wow.
Democrats, quote unquote, in New
Mm,
Jersey. And that's kind of, what we definitely are going to have the conversation about in this district is that applies to all the incumbents here. They have a very center right voting history. And
okay.
that's not like fabrication like some of the
Yeah.
attack ads they'll put out about us. That's just fact,
Facts.
and that's the
Yeah.
kind of stuff we need to change to help the people in the state.
How do you make sure you don't change if elected, and hopefully when elected to office? How do you keep to the progressive grassroots?
I think that's just really important to in the campaign, and even if you're someone who maybe wants to run for office, but you're not running yet. In anything you're doing, whether it's organizing or activism or civic engagement, make sure other people are holding you accountable. Because if
Mm-hmm.
people are holding you accountable before you take office, you're going to be more accountable to them when you take office.
Mm-hmm.
Um, people who are like on my campaign team, I know would be the first people who, if and when we got elected, would turn around and call me out if I, started started like
Yeah.
compromising my beliefs or like, passing things
Yeah.
that weren't like that. Because like, that's kind of what we're in this for. We're in this to be unapologetically progressive representatives of the people. And the second you
Mm-hmm.
lose that, it's over. I mean,
Yeah.
the whole mission is over. And so, I take it very seriously. And I know, Isa and Ricky, my running mates, do also, because there's not, again, like I said before, there's a deep bench of progressives who are really
Mm-hmm.
involved at high level offices anywhere in the state.
Mm-hmm.
And so, to us, it's bigger than us as individuals. It's about finally giving voices to marginalized communities, to young people,
Mm-hmm.
to people of color, to women, like people who
Mm-hmm.
haven't had a voice. Like those things are bigger than us as individuals.
Yeah.
And, that's the mentality we've had at Progressive Democrats of New Jersey. It's a mentality we've had during this whole campaign. And it's the mentality that we have to have when we get elected. And that's what I always say too,
Yeah.
when we get elected, in the same way that we're running because we need new leadership and new people in office and everything like that, if we get elected and in, 2-3 terms, like down the line some point, there isn't someone coming up after us saying the same thing about us, like pushing us more, wanting to run for office, wanting to do whatever,
Mm-hmm.
I think like part of that is a failure on us too. Like part of
Mm-hmm.
running for office is to represent people now and maybe in the short term future, but it's
Mm-hmm.
also to build the
The
line and the
bench.
bench of people
Mm-hmm.
behind us
Awesome.
to make sure that work is continuing in the future.
I know for me, I would like to see, of course, the town halls and the organization that you are part of that got you to where you are, which is, of course, New Jersey Democrats, the organization. You continue to do town halls and events with them, because I feel like once you start getting smoothie with the establishment, because of course you got to work with them on bills. I'm not saying that you can't, work with them with certain things, but they tend to adapt, or like make people become regressive instead of progressive. And I
Yeah.
think holding town halls on a regular basis, because like for example, Frank Pallone, I went to his when I first moved to where I am, and I tried to go, I thought I could actually meet my congressman, and I went there and I met his intern. So keeping like to yourself in the district and in the office and things like that, and having town halls where people can ask you the tough questions, and you making yourself available, even if we don't like the answers, at least you're making yourself available to get asked these questions. That's personally what I would like to see. So I just thought of something. Debates, like, do you think you're going to be able to debate your challenger, or you think he's going to shy away like most challengers do?
Yeah, no, he's not going to show up. He, well, I guess let me rephrase that. So I
Mm,
think if there is that second person running who isn't the incumbent, and there are 3 of us, I believe. So the way I think a lot of incumbents get out of this is,
mhm,
I know sometimes organizations who host debates sometimes won't televise them or sometimes won't do them if
mm,
not if less than half the candidates for that office show up. So if it's
mhm,
only 2 people and the incumbent doesn't show up, there's no
mm.
debate, or at least it's not
Yeah,
televised, so you can't get your message out.
yeah.
If there is a third person running, meaning only 2 of us need to show up to have one, I think there's a better chance to have a debate. I think
Mhm,
it's, if it's only the 2 of us, the incumbent won't show up. Because that it's sort of like you were just saying about kind of having halls and being transparent, being accountable. The incumbents don't want to do those things. I mean, if they
yeah,
did, they
yeah,
would already having town halls. They would already be interacting. So
yeah.
the less they can answer for what they have done, the better. And that
Mm,
includes candidate forums and debates and things like that. So if it's only the 2 of us, I definitely don't expect them to show up. Um, I mean, I've seen it at the local level. Like I said, the person I'm running against as the incumbent is also the Democratic chairperson of my town.
mm,
And so he controls a lot of the council people here, and they passed the
mm.
resolution
Ooh,
the second year after I ran to no longer televise any candidate debates or forums
what?
because people like myself and others would go on and we would, to be blunt, wreck them in these debates because they
Yeah,
can't stand on their record well.
exactly. Yeah.
And their solution to that was, we're not going to televise them anymore.
Oh
Um,
wow, wow.
and
It's
so,
terrible.
he's already shown that he is scared to have anyone discuss kind of those ideas or those things they stand for, when it was, not directly him, but other people he kind of controlled. And
Hmm.
so I imagine he himself will be the same way. I hope I'm wrong. I
Yeah.
look forward to debating and discussing any kind of issues like that, because I think it's really important for the public to be able to make an informed vote and a decision. I mean, I would almost go as far as saying that I wish there was it was compulsory. You know, like you as a
Yeah.
candidate
Yeah.
or an incumbent had to attend certain
Agreed.
like state sponsored debates or
Yeah.
candidate nights,
Yeah.
and if you don't, then you can't even run for office.
Wow.
So you know,
I
well,
never thought
unfortunately, it's
about
not the
that.
case, but we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Hmm.
never thought about that. That is interesting. I always try to think of ways to have people debating. That's a strategy that I did not. I think that needs to happen. We need to like it makes
Hmm.
all the sense in the world. If you're going to represent the people, then you need to come before the people. And if you don't
Exactly.
agree to at least like let's say three debates, sanctioned state sanctioned debates, and you know maybe you have to have certain requirements, like you get this certain amount of petitions, or you know we could decide that later, but it should be compulsory because from what I understand, like Nancy Pelosi hasn't debated anybody in like over 20 years, like over 2 decades, so like that should never
Yeah.
happen. Yeah. So this last question I'm going to ask you before we run: is there a local New Jersey squad that you would be joining when elected? I'm having faith here, Jason. When elected to the state senate, State Senator Jason Krychiw will be joining. Will you be joining a New Jersey squad?
I think myself and Ricky and Isa, you know, when we all get elected, would probably be the start of that. I
Okay.
think I think there's a handful of people in the state house who are progressive on very specific issues.
Mm.
Like there are, but I wouldn't call them progressives. You know, like in that
Yeah.
sense that
Yeah.
like the squad are very unapologetic progressive representatives.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
Well-roundedly.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't say there's really, yeah, I wouldn't say there's really anybody who is kind of like fully across the board that way. And you know,
Hmm.
like as an example, like there are you know, people who have put up bills about like ranked choice voting or like early
Mm.
voting in the state. That's like a recent thing that's been coming up a
Oh,
lot,
nice. Nice.
which
Okay.
is, you know, like that kind of like voting reform, expanded voting access is like a very progressive thing to be putting forward. You know, it's always good to have more people involved in the process in an easier way. And also obviously ranked choice voting would get rid of the issue with the line in New Jersey to an extent.
Oh, okay.
But at the same time, these same people, um, like I said before, voted again. You know, were not in favor of marijuana legalization,
Hmm.
or they take a lot of money from police unions and police PACs and have very poor records when it comes to criminal justice reform in the state. You know, others who, like I mentioned before, like with the recently New Jersey passed the $14 billion Economic Recovery Act, where most of it was going towards corporate tax breaks. And that was voted for nearly unanimously by both the Assembly and the state Senate.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
to me, you can't sit there and call yourself progressive if you're passing multi-billion-dollar corporate tax break legislation, or
Yeah.
you're not fighting for criminal justice, or you're not fighting for you know, environmental rights and protections and things like that. So
Mm.
you know, I think there are, like I said, I think there are some people who will champion very specific progressive issues, and I
Mm.
look forward to working with them on those specific policies. But I would say no, there's no fully progressive squad type people in the state house, yes, and in the state house yet. And you know, by the primary on June 8th and then the general election in the fall, hopefully there'll be at least three between myself and Ricky and
Yeah.
Isa.
Yeah, I'm looking forward. All right, we're gonna wrap it up here. I'm looking forward to seeing how your race progress, and definitely gonna do another interview after win or lose, and we're gonna talk about the case studies. You know, the things that you learned from it, and we're gonna try to continue to inspire other people to learn the ins and outs of how to run at the local level, and hopefully in the future, once you do state senator and you become a state senator and you know, do your thing there, maybe house one day, you know, and continue on from there, because we definitely need to build that bench. And that's one way you can build a bench, is as you progress forward, you train the next person behind you to replace you as state senator, right? So Also, I want to give you, again, I'm show your website here. Jason and Ricky, Isa and Ricky, and you can donate here as well. I know I'm going to donate. I'm going to pledge right now. I'm going to donate here the $25. Thanks for, and the last thing I want to just give a shout out to the people in the chat. Oliver Brooklyn, we got C Bendone, CJ Bendone, I know who that is, and then Alan Amberster. All right, so thanks again, Jason, and also once again donate, and the website is LD20 Progressive Dems. That's LG. Let me bring it down here so that you guys can see it, right? Not show everything. All right, LD20progressivedems.com. LD20progressivedems.com. Thanks again, my man Jason. Crush you. He just crushed this interview. Just dropped a whole bunch of gems on you guys with how to run, raising money, running a campaign. This is stuff that you don't normally hear in interviews. And I'm looking forward to continuing to open up the blinds on how to run a campaign. Thanks again, Jason. Thanks to everybody. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, with me and Jason. And we appreciate that as we continue down the road to progress.